It's time for Mac Geek Gab, and listener Rob brings us our quick tip of the week by saying, I completely forgot about how you can drag and drop between apps on the iPhone. I was recently trying to send a contact to a contractor. The contractor had messaged and called me, but I never saved their number in my contacts. But I needed to share a number with them. So I went into my contacts app, tapped share, and loved, of course, that I could choose exactly which info I wanted to send, just the name, title, location, and phone number. And it was at that point I realized, because I didn't have the contractor's number saved, I couldn't choose them as the destination of this share. So I long pressed the contact card I had created, kept my finger on the screen, swiped to the home screen, opened messages, of course with the other finger, and dropped it right into my existing conversation with my contractor, and it worked perfectly. It turns out that drag and drop works across lots of apps now that I've rediscovered it. More quick tips like this, plus your questions answered today on Mac Geek Gab 1088 for Monday, May 5th, Revenge of the 5th, 2025. Greetings, folks, and welcome to Mac Geek Gab, the show where you send in tips like that. We share the answers. We share the tips. You send in questions, we share the answers. Easy for me to say. You send in cool stuff found, we share that too. The goal is each of us gets to learn at least 5 new things every single time we get together. Sponsors for this episode include... ScreenCastsOnline.com/MGG. That's where you can go to try Screencasts Online free for 7 days and then get a lifetime 20% discount. Storyworth.com/MacGeekGab, where you can use their cool service to create stories with your loved ones. It's something I'm doing with my dad. You can do it with your mom. You can do it with anybody. It's cool. We'll talk more about that. And then the Insta360 X5 Camera, where you go to store.insta360.com and make sure to use our promo code MGG. And we'll talk about why you're going to do that in a little bit too. Here in Durham, New Hampshire, I'm Dave Hamilton.
And here in South Dakota, I'm Adam Christensen.
And here also in New Hampshire, it's Pilot Pete. Mucho feliz en Cinco de Mayo, gentlemen.
It is Cinco de Mayo. It's true. I'm excited to share a couple of things. Boy, I can't believe I said that phrase. I said it because I mean it, but it is one of those phrases that gets so overused. You know, we're excited to share. We're excited to do this. But I truly am excited to share 2 things. Number one, the Mac Geek Gab monthly giveaway for this lovely month of May is an eero Outdoor 7 unit. So you can go to macgeekgab.com/giveaway and sign up for that. And then we three, assuming all the travel gods smile upon us in the correct ways, we three will all be at Macstock doing a Mac Geek Gab on Saturday night at Macstock. And we have a coupon code in the show notes. The coupon code is MacGeekGab50, spelled out like that, case insensitive. Not that we're insensitive to case, but it's insensitive to case.
It's insensitive to us.
Case is insensitive to us, and by golly. And you can save $50 on your registration. Macstock is a 3-day event this year, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. But we will be the Saturday night event. I believe it's 8 p.m. Saturday night, depending on how all the things shake out. But that'll probably work the way the schedule. So anyway, the 3 of us will be there. We will be doing a live recording of Mac Geek Gab, assuming we record it. We will be doing a live Mac Geek Gab. Hopefully, it will be recorded. And
whether
shared.
we hit the record button or not depends.
That's right. Yeah.
Depends on what.
The amount of alcohol imbibed by that point on Saturday. Who knows?
Likely.
Yeah. They're the as I understand it, I think we need to be out of the room from like 4 to 8 that day, and then we can get back in, or 4 to 7, so we can get back in and be set up by 8 o'clock to do MGG. So that's a long time for a bunch of nerds like that to have free. So we'll see what happens. Yeah. Anyway, please come
Register
to
now.
MacStock. It's a blast. Yeah.
Come
We
see
love
us there.
We love getting to see you. Come so we can. Yeah, you can come to see us, but really come so that we can get to see you. So that's that's really fun. So, Adam, did you have a follow up to the Rob's quick tip about drag and drop?
Just that I use drag and drop all the time in the Files app to move things around, just like I would on my Mac, And I also thought we commented. I thought, well, except I use my finger on my iOS device instead of a mouse, but I don't actually use a mouse on my Mac. I use a trackpad, so technically it's the same thing. I drag things around with my finger in both instances.
In both places.
It would be nice to be able to go, hey, lady, send Dave Hamilton's contact to Adam Christensen.
How do you know that doesn't work?
Then you wouldn't. I'm pretty sure it doesn't. I've tried. But that would, I'd like to. All I'm saying is I'd like to be able to verbally drag and drop. But in the meantime, this works. Whereas lady does not.
I'm on the beta for and I don't know if they've started adding in more S-Lady stuff, but it's gotten a lot better for me.
It is getting better.
Recently.
I'll grant that. Yeah. And
unbelievable.
I think they're putting some brains in that division to make it so. Because they realize they need to. Because the other, the Google Assistant, the A-Lady, all of those are leaps and bounds ahead.
I did just try this. I muted myself while you guys were talking, and I
saw
said,
you talking.
Yeah, hey, S-Lady, send Pilot Pete's contact to Adam Christensen. And it just sent the word contact to you, Pete. So, yeah. Stephen
yes,
Robles,
it did. I got the word. I got the message.
That's awesome.
Yeah, Stephen Robles did a fantastic video this week. I'll link to it in the show notes, where he compared the Perplexity app, which is Perplexity is one of the LLMs that's out there. The Perplexity app with everything that you could do with Siri. And there is so much that Perplexity app can do to control your iPhone, including starting things in Apple Music and doing all kinds of stuff. So while I don't think it would have access to, it could have access to contacts and messages though, couldn't it? So it might be able to, if you allow it. Right. Yeah, exactly. So I don't know that it'll do this, but there was a whole list of things. It was such a good list that I believe the Perplexity CEO wound up sharing it on Twitter. But I'll put a link in the show notes to it so that you can all watch it. Stephen Robles' video on Perplexity versus Siri. I told him that I hope that at the time I saw the video, it was like 3 days old and he already had like 52,000 people who watched it, which is awesome. I told him that I hoped that one of those 52,000 was Craig Federighi, but one can only hope. Yipper. Where are we going next? You got Joe for us?
Yeah, Joe has a quick tip for us. He says, "Hi, guys. Apple News Plus is a core part of my reading routine. Apart from general reading, I use it to access otherwise paywalled publications like the Wall Street Journal, The Atlantic, and my local newspaper. When I hit a paywall while browsing the web, I select the headline and trigger a keyboard maestro macro to find the article in Apple News Plus, which gives me access to the full article 95% of the time. One criticism: the ads on the service are obnoxious. I would pay extra to avoid them. Hope you find this useful. Cheers, Joe."
I love this. I tried it, and it's worth remembering that if you have an Apple One subscription, then you have News Plus as part of that. Yep. And the first time I read through it, I was like, well, how do you put a link into Apple News Plus? And I then reread what Joe had said and what you said, which is I select the headline and trigger a keyboard maestro macro to find the article. I was like, right. So it's just searching by headline. And I tried it. I found an article on Wall Street Journal that I couldn't read on the web, and it worked. It's great. What a brilliant thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
God.
The other tip that I'll give, and this won't work in a lot of cases, like the Wall Street Journal and the Atlantic are too smart for this, but he mentioned his local newspaper. My local newspaper, I don't believe is in Apple News Plus. I probably should triple check, but they have a paywall. Thing is their technology is not smart enough to block reader mode. So if you hit a paywall on a site, try reader mode. It works sometimes, and it definitely works for my local paper. So hopefully no one from my local paper is listening, and they get smart and figure out how to block this. But so then I also, just for that domain, changed the settings so that it automatically opens in reader mode whenever I click anything to go there. So it just is never paywalled for me.
Interesting. Yeah, I wonder what the answer is for that, because I obviously we do an advertising supported show, at least partially advertising supported, and I ran an advertising supported website for decades, and so I get that content needs to be paid for, and and I understand. We did paywalls for a little bit here with Mac Geek Gab, and I understand the concept and the value, but it seems like it's not for local news. The friction is too prevalent. I don't know what the answer is.
Well, here's the weird thing about that, right? Is the regular site has ads anyway, like even if you're paying for it.
Yeah.
Right? So even if they want whatever $3 a month or whatever, it's not a lot. And I ended up just ultimately paying it when I realized I was going there more than I thought I would.
Sure. Yeah.
So, I had figured out this trick that I just shared. And the intent is not to bypass it, but occasionally, some piece of news and you just want the information. What's weird to me about, especially the small local newspapers paywalling their stuff, is that they have ads on there. So my workaround bypasses the ads also. So if they would just let me on there, they would have more eyeballs on their ads, which I would presume would mean they could charge more for their ads. So I don't understand the business model.
That's the part where I'm having, that's where the disconnect is for me, is it is routinely proven, and we can go back, decades looking at this, that ad supported will, in most cases, generate more revenue than paywall for content. In most cases, not certainly, you could find exceptions, but generally speaking, and for local news, I feel like that's where they're missing the opportunity. But a lot of these local newspapers aren't actually local anymore either. Like I think ours here is run by a company out of Dallas or something like that. Anyway,
yeah, I'm sure ours is too.
I digress. Yeah, I digress. You want to take us to Ben, Pete?
I could do that. And I want to tell you that Ben's quick tip worked for me perfectly all afternoon yesterday. And when I went this morning, so we've got a deeper discussion coming up. We've been talking about the mysterious disappearing desktop folder, and Ben sent in a link to an article or a thread it was an Apple support forum, where it said if you go into library preferences and delete com.apple.finder.plist and restart your Finder, then your desktop should remain in your sidebar. And someone else wrote in and asked, well, isn't that an option in your Finder settings? It is. You go in and you set desktop, but that's iCloud desktop is where it appears. I've been dragging the desktop up to my favorites and it's been disappearing. Well, yesterday I deleted the com.apple.finder.plist, restarted Finder, restarted the computer, and the desktop remained in the Finder side window until this morning.
So let me ask some specific questions, because I think we're skipping some things. When you say that after restart, the desktop folder remained in the sidebar, do you mean that it remained in the favorites section?
It remained in favorites, Dave.
Great. And then this morning, when it disappeared, did it truly disappear, or did it move back down to the iCloud section?
It moved back down to the iCloud section. And let me just double check. I think it was checked to appear. Yes, it is checked, show in sidebar.
Yeah.
And yeah. So,
all right. So I have an idea. I have an idea though, because we may be onto something.
Yeah.
The Finder settings sidebar, you can set which things you want to appear. And
Correct.
as you noted, you have desktop checked. And now in that, it is checked for the iCloud section.
Yes.
I wonder if that's the problem. This is just a theory. What if you uncheck it there and then manually, go to your home folder or wherever, however you would get to desktop, because it's not actually in your home folder because it's, but whatever. Go to iCloud Drive or whatever, find your desktop folder, and then drag that into the favorites section and see if it sticks. I wonder if because it's checked in the Finder settings sidebar to be in the iCloud.
That is a great idea, Dave. So what I've done now while you were talking is I unchecked it in Finder settings. Yep. And of course, it immediately disappears from iCloud when you do that.
Correct.
If you
not from iCloud itself, just from the iCloud
sidebar,
section.
Yeah, from the iCloud section in sidebar. But if you click on above that iCloud Drive, then you can go and look and you will see that, in fact, the desktop folder is there. I've dragged the desktop folder back up into favorites. I will report back next week. Or in 10 minutes, whenever it disappears.
I had dragged desktop into my favorites, and it was in both places. It was in the iCloud desktop and in the favorites desktop. Yes. So I have also, but that was days ago, and it hasn't gone away. I did not delete the Finder.plist, but I have unchecked it in my Finder settings on this computer. So we'll find out if that we'll get there. We are going to find an answer to this.
Right.
Go ahead, Adam. Yeah,
I have support for this theory because I just popped open my Finder settings and my desktop for iCloud is unchecked, and I've had my desktop, and I think that's exactly how I got it there originally. I've had my desktop in the sidebar for forever. And
in favorites for the sidebar.
In favorites for the sidebar, yeah. And I think I set it up that way originally, and I've never had it go missing. So,
excellent.
Another quick tip, though, I don't know how this happened, but when I popped open my Finder and looked at my desktop folder in my favorites in the sidebar, it had a set app icon on it. And I just drug it and then dropped it again, and then it refreshed, and the right icon came back. So
it has the correct icon now.
Yeah, some weird bug.
Okay. Huh. All right. Well, we'll see where all this leads us. The next thing that I want to do is talk about our first sponsor. Because, imagine if your camera could capture everything around you, literally. Well, with the new Insta360 X5, you hit record, live your life, and then decide how the shot looks. Want a drone-style shot without the drone? Done. Want to reframe that bike ride like you had a film crew following you? Also done. The X5 shoots stunning 8K 360-degree video day or night thanks to its massive sensors and dedicated low light mode. The new dual video mode gives you both flat and 360-degree footage at the same time, so you can share instantly and still have the full 360 footage to play with later. And yes, it's waterproof to 49 feet, has replaceable lenses, and a battery that lasts up to 185 minutes. Oh, and that whole invisible selfie stick look, it makes you look like you're being followed by a very polite ghost with a gimbal. Don't get caught filming like it's 2008. Go to store.insta360.com, grab the Insta360 X5, and then use promo code MGG to get a free 45-inch invisible selfie stick, itself worth $24.99, with the first 30 purchases of the standard package of the X5. Links are in our show notes at macgeekgab.com. Go create something wild, and our thanks to Insta360 for sponsoring this episode.
Dave.
Adam.
Terry has a bunch of questions because he's getting an upgrade.
Uh-oh.
Yep. And asking, hey, great news and a few questions. I'm getting 2 gigabit per second fiber from Brightspeed. If I upgrade my eero 6.3 units to eero 7, what kinds of wireless speeds can I expect? Also, can I keep any of my eero 6 units in the system? And if I do, will that slow down the system? Additionally, will I need to do a port bonding between the Brightspeed modem and my primary eero, presumably 7, in order to get the best wireless speeds. And then finally, I think, if I do that, which I understand is using 2 Ethernet cables from my modem to the primary eero, how then would I add a switch which currently manages the Hue hub and my Eufy hub to take care of lights and security cameras?
Great questions. And congrats. Yeah, more speed is good. It always, unquestionably. So it depends on the capabilities of all of the things involved. Eero, in my understanding, does not support any kind of port bonding. So you will not be doing that. Even if your Brightspeed, well, it's a fiber, so the ONT, I guess, is what it would be. Even if the Brightspeed device does allow port bonding, it wouldn't work with the eero anyway. My experience with fiber is that none of the ONTs that I've seen support port bonding, but they all have 2 ports on them. One is a 1 gig Ethernet port and one is a 10 gig Ethernet port. So you would want to use the 10 gig Ethernet port because that's faster than 2. And then depending on which eero you have, you will realize faster speeds over Ethernet. The Eero 6 that you have, just like the Eero 6 Plus, has 2 ports on it, and they are both 1 gig Ethernet ports, unbondable, to my knowledge. So you would, if you stick with what you have, your connection from the fiber to your Eero would be capped at 1 gig. If you have an Eero 6E, that has also 2 ports. One of them is a 1 gig port, and one is a 2.5 gig port. So that would get you up there. It's an auto-negotiating thing, just like the 10 gig port would be. So it would negotiate 2.5 gigs. That's effectively what I'm doing here with my setup, without getting too, without distracting us with a tangent. But that's essentially what I'm doing. I have a 2.5 gig port on my router and a 10 gig port on the ONT. The Eero Pro 7 has 2 ports. They are 5 gig ports each. So they would negotiate to 5 gigs. Presumably, and up you go. And then if you go all the way to the new Eero Max 7, that has 4 ports. 2 of them are 5 gig and 2 of them are 10 gig ports, and you could use them as you see fit, depending on what kind of devices you want to connect to them and all that stuff. With the Eero, any port can be the upstream port. It sort of auto senses and figures that out, so you just sort of pick and you're good to go. To answer your question, though, about Wi-Fi speeds, I have been doing some Wi-Fi testing with my iPhone 16, not Pro, but I think the Wi-Fi chip is the same in the 16 and the 16 Pro. And the Eero Pro 7, the Eero Outdoor 7, and also and I don't have the model number right in front of me, but the Unify U7, I think is what it is, the access point for the 2x2 access point for Wi-Fi 7. And I get, when I'm doing local speed tests, so I'm not relying on the internet for anything because that can be a bottleneck, because my connection only does about I pay for 1 gig fiber, so I get about 1.1 gigs is what I get. But if I'm testing locally using iPerf from my phone to these access points, I see about 1,500 megabits per second, 1.5 gigabits per second, both up and down on Wi-Fi 7, which is pretty darn cool that we have Wi-Fi connections that can go faster than gigabit Ethernet. So yeah, it would, you're going to be fine if you stick with your Eero 6 on this. You'll probably get, obviously you're not going to get Wi-Fi 7 speeds. You're probably going to get somewhere, my experience was, 700 to 900 megabits per second with the Eero 6, I think, if memory serves. And for most of what you're going to be doing, if not entirely everything, you're not going to notice a difference between that and 1.5 gigabits, depending on what you're doing with your phone. But if you're like me, and I know you are, and you want to know that you have the fastest speed possible, then yeah, Wi-Fi 7 is going to be your magic answer. That's what I have on that. I don't know if either of you guys have something. Adam, do you have anything to add to that?
No.
Okay, great.
Don't disagree at all. I mean, my only thing is how fast is fast enough, but you know, I don't know. I have Gigabit, and I know that I don't most of the time use it to its full capabilities. I probably did when we had 4 people in the house and they were all streaming, 4K videos from different services. Maybe, I don't know.
Probably not. 4K
Right.
video, like from Netflix, 4K video takes 25 megabits per second to stream. So, yeah.
So I don't even know what I would saturate it for. I mean, I guess, I don't know, would iCloud backups over the net, or not iCloud, Time Machine backups over the network, maybe?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the server has to be able to push it to you at that speed as well. That's the other limitation.
Yep.
So,
I mean,
go ahead.
I was just going to add, I don't know about you, but I don't sit around monitoring my Time Machine backups. Anyway,
Right. I notice it here when I publish the show each week. Yeah. This computer in the studio has a 2.5 gig Ethernet connection all the way to the router. I mean, like I said, my router has a 1.1, upstream and downstream, but locally, everything runs at 2.5 gigs that can, including my disk stations. And I take the video from the show and I archive that on my disk station. And I watch that save at I don't know. It's never fully 2.5 gig. Like it might start there, but then, we're dealing with write speed on the disk station, which is pretty good. There's 5 drives in there that are working hard and all that, but it usually is about, maybe 1.8 to 2 gigabits kind of where it settles in. And don't get me wrong, I've only had this for 4 or 5 months, so I'm still super excited when I see it going that fast. But it doesn't really matter. If it was 10% that speed, I would notice because I'd be sitting here waiting for it to finish eventually, right? So depending on what you're doing, yeah. And when I upload the audio, it's really nice to have that go up at it, and even that I think is only going at 500 or 600 megabits per second because the server on the other end, that's the fastest it can take it. But still, that's awesome when I can upload the audio and have it just an uncompressed audio file, it's usually 400 megabytes or something. And it's just instant almost. It's okay, that's pretty cool. So but I'm maybe using half of my connection that I pay for currently. But, 2 years from now, there'll be more things to use. So
are you still double connected, Dave?
What do you mean?
One up. You used to have both Comcast and
I have everything. Yeah, I have everything wired up. And for a while, you're right. I was paying for both a fiber connection and my Comcast Xfinity connection. But that Comcast Xfinity connection, even at the lowest speed, was still costing me, $40 a month or something. And I realized I don't need it to fail over that quickly, instantaneously. I don't need that kind of insurance policy. So I canceled that. But we did have a problem, I don't know, a year and a half ago or something. And I just called Comcast and I was like, hey, can you turn this on? They're like, yeah, what's the MAC address of your cable modem? And I gave it to them because I had it in my files. I didn't even have to go look at the thing. And they were like, yeah, okay, just restart your cable modem. And so I turned it on because it was off. And it did its thing and synced up. And I mean, it all told probably took 30 minutes from the moment I picked up the phone to where I had connection there. And it was fine. But in terms of reliability and robustness, the fiber connection is far more robust than the cable connection. We had an issue last week where our fiber lines for the entire neighborhood were laying on the street.
Yeah.
They were down. And the only reason I knew about it was because I couldn't get out of the neighborhood that way. It was blocking one of the arteries in and out of the neighborhood. And it took Fidium, which is our fiber company, 2 days to get here to fix it, which seemed preposterous to me that we had the neighborhood basically closed off for 2 days because of this line that was I was going to say it was low voltage. It's no voltage. It's fiber. Like there's no issue. Yeah, it's light. Yeah. So, but no, I don't keep that anymore. It just wasn't worth the whatever. I don't know. It was, it was $500 a year or something that I was paying. Yeah. So, yeah. Yep. I don't know. Where are we here? Sean?
More questions.
Sean,
yeah, let's go.
Yeah. Sean's got another question for us. So I'm needing some geek advice. I have a 27-inch 2017 iMac. When I bought it, I had some extra money and I bought a 2 terabyte drive with it. A little overkill perhaps, but no one ever complained about too much storage space. This is a Fusion style iMac. About 6 months ago, the drive went. Apple replaced the drive for free, but they no longer make the 2 terabyte Fusion drives. So they gave me a 1 terabyte drive. My Mac used to run fast. Now it is not even close. It doesn't seem nice to give you that kind of a downgrade.
Yeah.
My main
free.
issue. I mean, put an SSD in there if you're bothering opening up. Anyway, sorry, I digress. My main issue is storage. I have a lot of pictures as well, and I used to store a bunch of movies on my computer to put on my iPad when traveling. So, do I get another 2 terabyte device, or do I go smaller and look at some sort of server? I'm torn, and I don't know much about setting up my own server. What are the pros and cons of this versus having bigger built-in storage? Take care, Sean.
Yeah. So I answered Sean's question, I would say at least partially. I didn't give him the pros and cons of the, larger storage locally in 2 terabyte, because I think we all, maybe I'm badly assuming that we all kind of know that. We know it's great to have everything right there and on your machine. But I did say to him, here's what I do. I keep my media from movies and shows and that sort of thing on a NAS drive. And that NAS drive is a Synology disk station, and it acts as a personal cloud. And the cool thing about that, it's like my own Dropbox, for lack of a better way to put it, to mention a name. The nice thing about that is, I've got my media there, but I can also share those folders with my children, with my wife. So if my wife needs access to an insurance policy or a credit card statement or anything like that, it appears locally on my hard drive, and you can set it up so that it's basically, I believe Dave was right to say it's an alias to that NAS drive. You don't have to keep it all. It's not an alias. It's
well, I don't know how you have yours set up. What you just said was describing Synology drive, right?
Yes.
The Dropbox equivalent of Synology is called Synology drive, and it syncs locally to it just like
to
Dropbox
wherever you
does.
have the client set up.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. Yeah.
And I think you can also set it up, though, if you're looking at storage limits on your local laptop. I think you can set it up as a link to, there's the file, but it'll go get it. It won't keep it locally.
There are ways to do selective storage.
With Synology.
Yes,
yeah.
correct.
That I don't do, but I believe, that's what I was saying. I believe you can. So I keep all of that there. It's shared. The family each has their own logins. So that's nice and secure. But the other thing I will say is a caution, I don't put my photos file on the Synology, other than a backup. I do keep a backup there, but I never access it from the NAS drive. And if you do so, be prepared for a complete and utter chaos mess. So just don't do that. But otherwise, the Synology has worked out to be a really good thing. It forced me to learn Synology, which is slightly different. It wasn't super intuitive at first, but man, is it super versatile. I got a Plex Media server on there. I can run it as a Tailscale on it, so I can see it from anywhere in the world. Whenever I log into Tailscale, it's always there. It's always secure. And I can put a couple TV shows or movies on my iPad. When I'm ready for more, drop those off, grab new ones as long as I'm connected somewhere, and I'm good to go. And I know that Dave has several use cases. We were talking pre-show. He's got some business stuff on his. An entire office suite is available to you there.
Yeah.
So I don't think you need the 2 terabytes local unless you want it. And it's fun to tinker and learn Synology and or QNAP, or I don't think there's any other good ones out there yet. Those are the two.
Ugreen, the offering that Ugreen is promising and at some level delivering is very intriguing because the team that is creating Ugreen's NAS or has created Ugreen's NAS are all ex-Synology and QNAP people. So they know what customers want, and they also understand what Synology's good at and what QNAP's good at. And the idea is if they take the best of those and put them together, we might have something fun. But we'll see.
When do you think that's going to happen? Didn't you see that a year ago at CES?
It's out. I will note that they keep telling me they're going to send me a review unit and have not. Now, I don't say that any of this egotistically, but I wonder, they know that I know about all this stuff. I've worked with these people at Synology and QNAP, same people over the years. So the fact that I haven't seen one yet, I don't know what that means. I certainly could buy one, and I've thought about it, like just to be able to test it. But then it's like, well, what are the limitations of this thing? Is it ready for prime time? I don't know. So we'll eventually. They keep telling me they're going to send me one, which is why I haven't purchased one outright. But then it's like I see them 6 months later, like, oh yeah, we still got to send you one. Like, okay, well, eventually I'll probably just buy one so that I can test it and talk about it on the show. But I have thoughts on this. But Adam, do you have thoughts on Sean's question in general?
No, I mean, just my comment from earlier. Why did Apple 6 months ago put a 1 terabyte spinning drive in his iMac? Come on.
Yeah. I have, I think Sean's asking the wrong question. And I think it might have led us in the wrong direction. And I don't think the right use case for network storage is to offset what Sean needs locally.
Yeah, that's a very good point. The speed alone is going to be an issue, right?
No, not necessarily. I mean, I got 2.5 gig speed to my network storage device. Totally fine.
Yeah. We just talked about that. You're right.
Yeah, but like your comment about photos and that sort of thing, I think there's an amount of storage that Sean wants to have for his iMac. Your answer was all correct, but most of what you talked about with your answer was what you can do, what the benefits of network storage, meaning sharing with other people, sharing with yourself when you're remote, all of that stuff, and it's great. Yeah. But in terms of compensating for a lack of local storage, especially on a desktop machine, and especially given the cost of a network storage device, I would just buy a 2 terabyte external USB drive and SSD, and I would make that my boot drive and just go.
Yep.
I wouldn't think twice about that unless I already had the Synology and it was like, all right, by golly, I'm going to figure out how to make this work using what I already have. But otherwise, and if you want to get a Synology, I mean, trust me, I understand. Like, it's a tinkerer's dream. I love the thing. I think we all do. But
they aren't giving them away.
No, and
the cost benefit is different.
It's even with already having one.
Yeah.
It would not be the first thing I would think of to solve this kind of problem. Yeah. As evidenced by, I have a similar issue. I got 512 gigs of storage here on the boot drive of my Mac Studio. That's objectively just not enough for the things I use it for. And we've had this conversation, and that's fine. But I could just treat a folder on my Synology as a shared drive and just, save things there. And over the years, I've done that. In fact, I used to, when we started doing Mac Geek Gab, we were on spindle drives.
Yeah.
And I noticed that I was causing myself interrupt issues because I was saving the audio locally. I was recording the audio as we do as podcasters. And the act of having that file open and constantly saving it, again with a spindle drive, SSDs sort of mitigate this, but with a spindle drive was causing me like hiccups fairly frequently. So I used to save the audio live across the network to my disk station to avoid saving to the local drive. But it was like, even that was like, oh man, like if the network connection, I mean, it was a podcast, so if the network connection died, like I had a problem anyway. But it was not the best solution. So I think a local drive is the right solution for Sean here. And as much as
that's a good point. And that's why when I first said, I'm not sure I answered the question as well as I could have. So apologies for that, Sean, but that's a great point.
I don't think your answer's bad. It was all very.
It wasn't as thorough as it should have been. He asked about what are this versus that, and I gave him that, but I'd give him this.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, and it's easy. I had the opportunity to hear you read Sean's question, Adam, and then Pete, you answer it. So I get to be this sort of fly on the wall, and realize that Sean, in a sense, led you down a path. It was like he led the witness in a sense, right? It was
leading.
Like, should I get a Synology?
Leading.
And the answer is always yes. You definitely get a Synology, right? It's like, well, yes, get one, but solve this problem with something else. That's my feeling on it.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. And if you're brave, I mean, the 27-inch iMac, from what I remember, I mean, you can open it up and you could put an internal in there too if you didn't want an external.
That too.
Again, that's why I'm just baffled at why Apple didn't put a 2 terabyte. I mean, they're
SSD.
so dirt cheap.
Yeah.
Relatively. Like, I have to imagine they probably paid more to get a 1 terabyte spinning drive these days than.
Yeah, I was going to say, I bet the 2 terabyte SSD now costs less than that original Fusion drive they had in there.
Oh, yeah.
So Apple, step up, fish shake.
Let me look at this 2 terabyte SSD.
They probably don't have them. That's the issue. Is the Apple's only has certain parts, and so the center had a bunch of old 1 terabyte.
Yeah, I just found a 10.
Wanted them.
I just found a 10 gig USB drive on Amazon from Crucial for $130, 2 terabytes.
Yeah.
And that's ready to rock. So. And you can, it's $150. So
you can get 4 terabytes for under 300.
Yes, exactly. So yeah, there you go.
So you can even upgrade if you're willing to spend a little money. Like you could have double the storage you used to have.
While we're on this, I want to answer a quick question that Soccer Hallways asked in the Discord chat at macgeekgab.com/Discord that isn't Synology only using their proprietary drives now? And the answer is not entirely. In fact, not mostly. There are some enterprise-grade units that require Synology's proprietary drives to hit all of their standards for uptime and all of that stuff. But the consumer and even prosumer-focused units do not require the use of Synology drives. You can use anything you want in there. And I often wind up putting uncertified drives in mine. And what it usually is like I just, the last time I put a 20 terabyte drive in mine from Seagate, Synology had only certified up to the 18 terabytes because they just hadn't tested the 20s yet. They were too new. And so it's like, this drive isn't on our list, our supported list. I'm like, yeah, but like it's 18 terabyte. Brother is like it's going to be okay, and obviously it works out totally fine. So yeah, it's the enterprise units that require Synology drives, not everything. So just wanted to share that. Yeah, go ahead.
What is okay? Stupid question. Here it comes. What is a Synology proprietary drive? Is it? Does Western Digital make them for them or something? Or they don't make their own, do they?
I don't. Well, I don't know who makes their drives. It might be Seagate. They've always had a tight relationship with Seagate, so it wouldn't surprise me if it was Seagate. But it might not be. I don't know. But yes, it's a Synology-branded drive.
Gotcha.
So
they've hit them with some specs, and let's say it's Seagate, and Seagate came back and goes, "Okay, here are your specs." Met.
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly. Cool.
Wow.
And we'll dig into that. It is something that evolves over time. So we will be sure to mention that. The next thing I want to do is talk about our next sponsor. Because, well, let me ask you this. How well do you really know your mom's story? Not just the greatest hits, but the real behind the scenes stuff. Like, What was her first job? Or how did she really feel about disco? With Storyworth, you don't have to wonder. You get to ask. Here's how it works. Once a week, Storyworth emails your mom a question. You can pick from their own thoughtful list, or you can write your own. She replies, and then at the end of the year, those answers are bound into a beautiful keepsake book. I've been doing this with my dad, and it's fascinating. And I get to customize the whole flow, not just the questions, but once he gives a reply, I can prompt him for more information. I can choose the order, everything. It's like directing a documentary, but instead of camera gear, you're using email and people's hearts. It's a great Mother's Day gift. No batteries required. And best of all, you're preserving stories that would otherwise disappear into the digital void. Families love Storyworth. That's why it has more than 40,000 5-star reviews on Trustpilot, right? Give all the moms in your life a unique, heartfelt gift that you'll all cherish for years. Storyworth. Right now, save $10 on your first purchase when you go to storyworth.com/MacGeekGab. That's storyworth.com/MacGeekGab to save $10 on your first purchase. Give the gift of memories, and our thanks to Storyworth for sponsoring this episode. I do want to take a second because as we were telling you about Storyworth here, Kiwi Graham mentioned that there was a recent announcement from Synology that I had not been aware of that said that more and more, it's not just the enterprise devices, it's that in 2025 and later devices, there is a restriction to only allow Synology drives to be used, Synology disks to be used in plus tier NAS devices, which is most of what those of us nerds would use. So they're the higher performance ones. They have slightly more RAM and processors, and they're the things that tend to run Plex servers better and that sort of thing. And it is new devices out this year in the plus tier are limited to Synology-branded drives, which is an interesting limitation. I'm curious to see how long this sticks, but they do say that you can migrate your current things into your current setup. When you get a new Synology, let me put it this way: when you get a new Synology, you can, as long as it has at least as many bays as your old one and at least the capabilities of your old one, you can migrate all of your disks over to the new one, and your installation comes with it. Of course, all your data comes with it. That migration is super easy. And as far as we understand it, that will not incur any drive brand limitations. It's when you replace one of those or add to them that these limitations will be there. So we'll find out more. But thank you, Kiwi Graham, for the heads up on that. We will. It's a developing story. So we will.
Another question on the fly, Dave. Why? Why do you think they did that?
I'm going to move on because I have no idea. We'll find out more. Yeah, it's not worth getting political about it.
Sounds good.
I'd rather share valuable information.
There you go. Rather than speculate. I get you. One other quick thing I'd like to mention, though, is I have the 1815, and several months back, it died. And I'm like, oh, crap. These, like I said earlier, they're not giving these things away. What should I do? I just replaced the power supply in mine, and it was back up and running inside of I got the power supply off Amazon. It was up and running within 3 days. It was a simple operation to replace that. So if yours dies, take a look at maybe doing that. So yeah. If it's working for you, if the capabilities are working for you, it was like $50 as opposed to many hundreds. We had a conversation about Apple's baseline storage being 256 gigs, and we asked you to write in and tell us about if you are using a Mac with 256 gigs, how does that work out for you? And because we realized that this works well for a lot of people. Glenn has our first of two comments that we'll share about this today. He says, a few years ago, I decided to forgo my laptop as my primary device and switch to an M1 iMac. I kept my old 2015 Air that I had upgraded with a 1 terabyte SSD. Being retired, my travels can often be 2 to 3 months in our RV. Sounds awesome. While I can handle most of my mobile needs with an iPad, there are times where I really prefer a Mac.
So for the past few years, I traveled with the Air. However, I got tired of dealing with older versions of macOS and some things not working. He says, I started looking around and found a 13-inch M1 MacBook Pro for $350 on Craigslist. It was a base model, 8 gigs of RAM, 256 gig storage, and the camera no longer worked to a third-party screen replacement. No big deal, and the price was right. Now, how to deal with the small SSD when my iMac has about 400 gigs of storage used. I sync all of my files to iCloud, but keep a complete copy on my iMac for local and offsite backup. While I do use optimized storage, the limited bandwidth on the road could be a problem. Solution. I have an external SSD on the iMac that gets cloned daily. I take it with me and I can always access any large files that I can't get from iCloud. I recognize that a lot of people don't want to work with multiple Macs or depend on cloud solutions. However, I find that easier than dealing with external drives on a laptop. Thanks, Glenn. Yeah, but it makes perfect sense. Yeah.
Yep.
There's ways of making it work. You want to share Brian's thoughts on this?
Yeah, Brian is also living with 256 gigs, and he says, the machine I'm using is to type this email, and it has a 256 gigabyte drive. It's an M2 MacBook Air. Of note, this isn't my work computer, but rather I use this for my personal endeavors, which tend to not include a multitude of files. And the files that I use on a regular basis tend not to be too large. Example, word processing and spreadsheet documents with presentation and photo files making up the larger percentage of the saved files. That said, I did buy this computer as a secondary device. If it were my primary machine used for work purposes, I would buy a larger drive. However, I would also be comfortable to offload some of the lesser used files to a NAS or external hard drive too. So very similar to, I think, Glenn's comments.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's there are clearly ways of making this work, and lots of you do. Thank you, everybody, for your.
I like Glenn's comment about doing a clone or some sort of sync of like your critical files to a external like little SSD that you can just grab and go when you're going to leave the house, and then you don't have to be reliant on some sort of Wi-Fi or network connection. That was a great solution. I wouldn't have even probably thought of that.
No, and there are those little like thumb drives that are even a terabyte or 2 terabytes at times, and so for size and portability and weight and all that stuff, you can have something pretty darn small that contains the bulk or all of the data you'd want to have with you. So yeah, it's a good idea. I like you. I don't think I would have thought of it, Adam. Fun stuff.
That reminds me, I got to go find my tiny 2 terabyte thumb drive. That's the problem with it. It's small.
Yeah, 2 terabyte SSD thumb drive. Who made
it? Might be a 1 terabyte, but it is stinking tiny. It was literally smaller than my thumb. So no wonder I misplaced it. I think I know where it might be, but
there's tons of them out there. Yeah. And again, for like 100 I see one from Buffalo, an external 2 terabyte SSD. They say it's USB 3.2 Gen 2. So that's technically 10 gigs, but it looks like speeds wise, it's doing about 5. Maybe a little more. So that's just the speed of the media, not necessarily the interface. Oh, that's USB A. Oh, or C.
Yeah,
that's
that was the cool thing.
That's $115. There's a Transcend one that'll do your full 10 gig, and that's $170. So we'll put links to some of these things in the show notes just to kind of wet your whistle. But these need not be large drives. So.
If they're small, find a way to keep track of it.
Yes.
Keep it on a keychain or something. Or
make it larger is what you're trying to say, Pete?
Well, in some way, shape, or form. Keep it on a keychain or
add an air tag, a lanyard.
Add an air tag. Most importantly, probably encrypt it. So when you do lose it,
That's a really good point. Use File Vault on this thing. Yeah, man. Yeah. I like that idea.
So when it does go, it's just data that no one can read. So.
Exactly. Yep.
But because I remember I was sure, it's been a couple of years now, it did a cool stuff found thing on that 1 terabyte thumb drive, and it was A and C. So each end of it, you could plug it in either way. And crazy good. Yeah, well.
Yep.
Hey, what do you think? Should I move on to Chris's question?
Yeah, let's do it.
It segues in there nicely. Chris writes in, he says, I have recently switched from my trusty 2012 Mac Mini server with 16 gigs and a 2 terabyte SSD to an M2 Mini base model with 8 gigs and 256 gigabyte as an interim solution until I can get an M4 Mini with 24 gigs and a 2 terabyte drive. I have all of my data on an external Samsung 2 terabyte SSD, including my large photo library with over 65,000 photos. Is there a way to set Mac OS to also use my documents and downloads folder on the external SSD instead of storing it on the internal drive? Best regards, Chris from Houston.
So the safest way, and I'll define safest as a way that uses Apple technology and things that exist in Mac OS, would be to relocate your entire home folder to an external drive. Moving just your documents or your desktop folder, there are no official ways of doing that. And everything that we've heard of where people have tried has kind of failed. The exception to that is where you leave all of the sort of default folders where they are, and then on an external drive, you create a folder like, Chris's documents, and then just choose to make that the default place that you store your stuff. And that's fine. And you could even put a folder in your regular documents folder that, just says like ***, don't save here, just to visually remind you as you're going to save things. Like, oh, yeah. I got to change the default for whatever that app is to over there. And if you do that, obviously, that's fine. But otherwise, if you want your desktop folder over there, relocate your entire home folder. And believe it or not, it's doable. There's a Lifehacker article that we are going to link to, a LifeWire article that we'll link to that still walks through the correct steps. It's a few years old. The screenshots don't look exactly like what you'll see in macOS 15, but the steps are still the same. And that is, you go into System Settings, you go to Users and Groups, you right-click on your user account, and then go to Advanced Options, which is an Advanced Options ... It's the only thing that appears when you right-click on your user account. And you can set the location of your home folder. This does not move your home folder. You need to do that separately and preferably first. And then you can change the location of it. So if I were going to do this, I would create a secondary admin account. I would log out of my first account, use the secondary account, move the data over, whatever I needed to do, then use the secondary account to change the property of where the home folder lives for the first account, then log back in and, keep my fingers crossed and knock on lots of wood. But I know people that have done it and it works, but your mileage may vary. I see Adam laughing at the benefits of doing this show with video.
Do it.
Don't do it. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. I know people have done this and wanted to do this, and this has been a thing for years and years and years. It's one of the downsides, I guess you can call it a downside, or not downside. It's probably not the right word. It's just one of those things that you just have to accept as an Apple user. There's certain things that the operating system is just, and Apple is, as we know, opinionated about. And like your home folder and like where your stuff is being on a local drive will just keep your life nice and simple and easy. I like your other tip, Dave, of just like, if you need to offload storage, put that on the external. And, because we all have files, like it's just
boot from the external, you mean? Yeah.
No, not even boot from the, I mean, you could do that. That'd be the better way to go if that's your thing. But like,
yeah,
we were talking about living with less storage. Just get the external and take all those massive folders and files that are 10 years old that you're not going to access, but that are just freaking sitting there, and move them over. Like, do some house cleaning. Like, what do you need on your actual drive is probably the stuff that you're working with for the past 6 months. There's so many of us are just like getting this habit of like, I know I'm guilty of it. I just had to clean house this week because I had, I did a lot of work for clients. I'm not doing much client work anymore, if at all. And I had decades of stuff in, like websites I had worked on.
Yeah.
And I haven't talked to these clients for years. I don't even know if their websites still exist, but I have their entire website file, all their images, all, like everything sitting on my local hard drive. And I'm like running out of space. And I'm like, I need space. And it's like, well, I know these are backed up to my Synology. They're backed up to my Drobo. They're up in the cloud. Like, why are these even here? Like, and I offloaded like terabytes,
Yeah.
of
true.
stuff. Like,
Yeah.
So.
Well, I know we mention it all the time, but it's because of how well it works for exactly things like this. Is Hazel from Noodlesoft, right? You can tell it, take the stuff that's in this folder with these conditions, and one of the conditions can be, it's older than whatever, and move it and then delete it, aka archive it. And it works great. It is a cornerstone of my workflow here and how I live with the 512 storage that's in the Mac Studio. I don't even think about it. It's just totally automated. I get an error message if Hazel can't do it, and the only reason it can't is because my network drive isn't mounted properly. It's like, oh yeah, let me remount, and then I watch it just go and file stuff off.
Yeah,
Okay,
moving the home folder thing, I mean, I know it can be done. People have successfully done it. I'm sure we'll hear from people who say, I did this and I've had no problems.
Yeah.
The issue is when you have a problem where something goes south, it makes it super difficult. You're just, I've just heard too many people with horror stories. It's like, I did it was working great, and then everything just went.
Yep. I agree. Yep. All right. Well, we have, if you have a question for us, feedback at macgeekgab.com, because that's how all of these came in.
Hold on, I have a question. Did you say feedback at macgeekgab.com?
I sure did. Yeah.
That's what I heard, Pete. Feedback at macgeekgab.com.
That's where you can send in your questions, and then we'll answer them. You can send in your tips and to that too. You can send in your cool stuff found, and we have some cool stuff found to share. The next thing that I want to do is talk about our third sponsor, because look, we all spend a lot on our Apple gear. M2, M3, maybe even the M7 quantum warp chip coming in 2029. Who knows, right? But here's the thing. Owning the gear isn't the same as knowing how to use it. And that's where ScreenCastsONLINE comes in. These folks have been making Apple video tutorials since before YouTube. Every week, you get 2 new videos, one full-length deep dive and one quick tip. We love that. Covering macOS, iOS, iPadOS, and amazing third-party apps you didn't even know that you needed. And it's for every skill level. Whether you're new to shortcuts or you're out there automating your espresso machine with HomeKit and Logic Pro, they've got you covered. The presenters, Lee, Don, Darcy, Mike, and of course, new listener Allison Sheridan, all obsessed with helping you get more out of your tech. You even get access to their entire archive and their digital magazine with guest articles by Mac Sparky. I mean, one more article and it might actually boot your Mac faster. Probably not, but maybe. Who knows? Don't get caught underutilizing your gear. Head to screencastsonline.com/MGG. There, you get a full 7-day trial, free, no credit card required, nothing. And then after that, you get 20% off for life on a monthly, quarterly, or annual plan. No money up front, nothing to lose except those "how do I" questions. Wouldn't it be nice to lose those? Indeed. Thank you to the folks at ScreenCastsONLINE for sponsoring this episode. And yeah, go check it out, screencastsonline.com/MGG. I think you're going to love it. All right, let's do some cool stuff found, shall we?
Fantastic. Yeah, cool stuff found is always fun and sometimes expensive. This one is actually pretty reasonably priced. I'm talking about the Rocksteady, that's one word, Rocksteady Stadium 2.0 speakers. You can find them at rocksteadyaudio.com. I got to try a review unit. I saw these at CES, and they sent me a review unit of 4 speakers and a sub and the carrying bag. So that's a 4.1 system. You can get as little as 1 speaker. And now I'm going to really date myself or age myself. Back in the 70s, when I was in high school, God, I feel old. Radio Shack came out with a speaker called the Minimus 7, and it was a 7-inch speaker, and man, did it sound fabulous. It sounded like some of the big, 18-inch wide by 2.5 foot tall floor stereo speakers, and that's what these things sound like. They are amazing. They're easy to pair. You could do one, or you can do a stereo pair. set all 4 up, set the sub up, and they are, they remember. Here's the cool thing: is a Bluetooth 5.0 connection, and once you set them up in your stereo, left, right, surround, what have you, they remember your setup. They've got dual bass drivers that have great response, tweeters. Here's the best part about them, though: you get up to 30 hours of battery life. You get the solid Bluetooth connection that remembers where it was, and indoor, outdoor, you want to do a tailgate or a backyard party for graduation or anything along those lines, anywhere you want portable sound that really sounds great and gives you a nice stereo or surround sound, these Rocksteady audio speakers are fantastic. And you aren't limited to 2 or 4. They're called the Rocksteady Stadium because they could literally do an entire stadium as long as they're within, I wanted this, I don't remember the number now. I want to say within 50 feet, maybe even further than that. You can just keep adding speakers and speakers and speakers. You can play music literally in an entire football stadium if that's what you chose to do. Now,
yeah, right. And what was the price? Is it $599? Is it $600 for the 4 speakers and subwoofer bundle? Am I seeing that right?
For the 4 speakers with sub and carrying case, it's $599.99. An individual speaker is $149. The 2 speakers is $249. And 2 speakers with a sub is $399. And then just the 4 speakers without the stub is $469. But
I'm trying to think if this could be used for like TV audio, movie audio.
Yes. You can connect it to your TV. You can connect, and so you can plug it in. But they don't have to be battery operated.
And can you connect without Bluetooth? Because Bluetooth for a TV speaker, you get weird latency and all that stuff.
Yes, it has a 8 millimeter?
Whatever the 3.5 millimeter. Oh yeah, I see it. The headphone cable, the auxiliary cable. Got it.
Aux input. So
okay,
yes.
All right. So, but not surround. Like if aux is going to give you stereo,
right?
And so it's going to do its own thing. Yeah. All right.
But they sound really great. I really enjoyed the short time that I had with these speakers.
Yeah. Cool.
It's a wonderful setup. Jeff Lightman is the gent who designed them, and that's been kind of his life's passion, is to do good sound. He's an engineer for this, and man, he's hit it out of the park with this. He's hit it out of the stadium with this one to put it in the stadium.
Sweet.
So yeah,
thank you. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, fun stuff. We talked about Thunderbird a couple times on the show, the email client, and Larry said, I use Thunderbird. He says, and I have several email accounts set up: personal, business, town committee, organization, etc. I can't count how many times over the years I have sent an email from the wrong account. Usually it's not a disaster, but inconvenient since it gets stored in the wrong sent folder, replies go to the wrong account, etc. Then I found a plugin, Identity Chooser, for Thunderbird. Now, when I create a new email or even do a forward, it brings up a pop-up window listing my 4 accounts, and I get to pick the right one, and away I go. It also lets me choose a color for each account and puts a thin top and bottom border of the email text window in that color as a visual reminder of which account I'm in. It takes one more click on each email I send, he says, but I haven't sent from the wrong account in a very, very long time. Well, thank you, Larry. That's cool. While on the subject of, did you have something to add to that, Pete, before I derail us?
I've never done that, but I hear it's bad.
Yeah.
You believe me, don't you?
Yeah, we've all done that. I think that's great. While on the subject of Thunderbird, the bug that I mentioned may well have been fixed as of the release version that came out the morning that we're recording this, which is Thursday, May 1st. So version 138 of Thunderbird may indeed fix the indexing issue to make search results actually reliable in Thunderbird. I've been testing it in a beta on my test computer, which happens to be this one. But as of this morning, it's out to the release channels. And so I updated my computer in the office, and it was indexing folders that it could not index before. It had not finished yet, so I couldn't really test it by the time we recorded. But there is hope on the horizon. That said, I did hear about another email client this week, guys, and I started playing with it. Our friend David Jameson, who makes a piece of software called Gig Performer, I was talking to him this week and was lamenting something about email, and he said, "Oh, have you tried EM Client?" And I said, "No, I don't even think I've heard of it." It's a cross-platform thing. It works for Windows, Mac, Android, iOS. It is unlike most third-party email clients. EM Client feels like it's built for people to customize for themselves, like Apple Mail, like Thunderbird, kind of like Outlook, unlike Spark, where it's like we've come up with the way of using email and we've built our client around this idea. There's nothing wrong with that. There's lots of email clients that way. It's if you find one where your needs meet the developer's needs, then you're off to the races. But if you don't, then you've got Apple Mail, Thunderbird, Outlook, or EM Client. It's very flexible, extensible. Well, I don't know that it's extensible. Maybe that's the wrong word. But it is. There are features being added left and right. It is a little bit. They have a setup process that makes setup very straightforward. And in fact, it would even import all my mail from Thunderbird if I wanted it to, and my settings. I chose to go through the onboarding process, which was very straightforward. You could do it all manually, and then regardless of how you get there, the settings are extensive. All the different things that you can do, and controls, and how granular you can get with various different things. I was really impressed by this. Like it's got me. I want to test. I've tested it on my Mac. I have not tested it on iOS yet, but if it allows me to do the things on iOS that it allows on the Mac, or even a fraction of them, I might move to it as my default iOS mail client because of just how flexible it is. So yeah, really interesting stuff. And they've even got a cool thing where you can export, you get all your settings ready on one computer and then export your settings to either another computer or to your iOS device, even through like QR codes. So yeah, it's very, very interesting. I'm surprised we've never heard of this before, guys. I'd never heard of it before. Have either of you heard of this? Adam, is this new to you too?
No,
Yeah.
I was just looking at the pricing. I like the kind of pricing model because it looks like they offer subscription, and then they have a one-time option, which for personal gives you single user with up to 3 devices, and then you can also opt in for lifetime upgrades for like another $90. And so then it's not cheap necessarily, but I mean, if $150 and you have it for life with upgrades.
With upgrades. That's really interesting. Yeah, because the subscription is $40 a year. Or you can do, like you said, a one-time payment of $60 without lifetime upgrades, or $150 with. And then there is a free version that'll give you, I think, 2 email accounts in there and limited use of the more advanced features, but certainly, the basic features are all right there. And the trial, I think I'm still in my 30-day trial. Yes, I am in my 30-day trial. So I currently have access to all the features. Yeah, it's really, it's fascinating. I'm kind of blown away that we haven't seen it yet. Yeah, I know. It's all the years we've been doing this. I'm surprised it hadn't come up. It's built by a company in the Czech Republic, or a team in the Czech Republic. I don't know, but yeah, fascinating. So I share. Yeah, I think that's it. Do we have anything else to share for today, guys? Are we finished? I think we're finished. I think I'm hearing the answer to the question, which is we're finished. So yeah, thanks for hanging out, everybody. Fun stuff. Let me see if I can find the band. I did. Look, there's the band.
There you are.
I think it's fair to say that I also figured out what was going on with the audio hiccups. There's a plugin that I use to clean up sound of guests usually on my Geek Gab show, and it's called RX11 Voice Denoise, and it does amazing things to like get all the crap out of the background, and it's all low latency and all that stuff. But it seems like maybe it's too low latency, and when I put it in line in the mixer, it gets very, very sensitive to anything the CPU is doing. But without that, all good. And I have another way of running it through, like if I need to use it, I can run it out of band and keep it out of the mixer, and then everything's fine. Adam, how has your Wi-Fi been for this episode?
Wi-Fi's been good. Yeah, I was able to just move my my access point from one window to another one where it was more directly pointed at the main unit in the house. So that seemed to resolve it, at least for now. So we'll
Woohoo!
see. Knock on wood.
I like that. That's great.
Nice.
Yep. Problems being solved, folks, on both sides of the microphones here. So, yeah, that's
right.
That's why we do what we do. It's fun
And I can
stuff.
report my desktop is still in favorites an hour later. So
An hour, a whole hour. Well, this has been a great success. Thanks, everybody, for hanging out with us. Thanks to CashFly for providing all the bandwidth to get the show from us to you. Thanks to eero for doing the eero Outdoor 7 giveaway with us. Make sure you check out Adam's debut film podcast. Check out Pete's So There I Was. And then the other two podcasts I do, as I mentioned, Geek Gab for musicians, Business Brain for entrepreneurs. And leave us a review, would you? Feedback. Oh, sorry. I was going to say the email address. You can send us an email, but even better, review us at macgeekgab.com/review. We love it. We love it. Thank you so much.
5 stars. Leave a 5.
Leave a 5. Yeah, Pete, you have a shirt on. Thank goodness for that. We've got the cameras on.
Yeah, right.
Adam, in addition to being thankful that Pete's wearing a shirt, do you have any idea what it says?
That says, don't get caught.
Don't do it.
Made on a Mac.
Later.